Oh my, such drama on this Jobs Friday. I thought the drama was in the jobs report, but it turns out the drama really came later as Reuters posts a story that had so many holes in it that you could drive a fleet of next-gen vehicles through it. The claim was that Elon had scrapped the $25,000 Model 2 next-gen crossover, whatever it is, vehicle, and they claimed to have four sources. They cited meetings and emails and more. All of these seemed to be around the idea that it was too late for Tesla, as China company, the China manufacturers had already co-opted the space with vehicles priced from $11,000 to $25,000 in China. So what advantage would Tesla have coming into that market? Meanwhile, Elon posted on X, Reuters is lying, parentheses, again. So I have many, many things to say about this report. First of all, as of today, I've not heard a single report that says Tesla is going to make next-gen vehicles in Shanghai. Write it down. Have you heard a single report of any expansion of the factory there, of any changeover in the lines over there? Have you heard anything saying that there would be Gen 3 vehicles made in Shanghai? Haven't heard a single thing. Now, I think they are going to make Gen 3 vehicles in Shanghai, but I haven't heard any reports of that. I can imagine that Tesla could take a pass on that low margin business in China because there are dozens of competitors in China. I would even applaud that decision. I don't think they need to necessarily compete in that business in China. I could also see where in China, producing a robotaxi with a very low cost would be much more important than a consumer version. So in other words, if Reuters is talking about China, I can see where they would scrap the consumer version and only concentrate on making robotaxis in China. All right, let's go on from that. We have talked about holes in the story. We have just heard, I think, from Reuters that Berlin would be the first ones to make the Gen 3 vehicle. This was, I think, last week. Maybe it wasn't Reuters. I didn't look it up. Tesla would have a massive advantage in Europe over both the imports from China and the competition with local European makers because they have the cost advantage with the unboxed method, with making their own batteries, etc. And then especially when you throw on FSD, it's all over. So for the consumer version in Europe. So I could easily imagine they would make the consumer version in Europe where they would not be basically fighting with the Chinese makers who have to ship it over from China, pay import duties, etc. So Reuters pick one. Which story is the case right now? Number 3, not one thing in the Reuters article was about Austin production. They never said anything at all about the US. The idea that the Chinese brands would be a problem in the US is even more crazy than that they would be a problem in Europe. Moreover, the eventual Model 3, Gen 3, and Model 2, Gen 3, whatever it's going to be called, whatever they're going to call that, it's going to be made in Mexico eventually, where the labor rates are actually lower than China, and Optimus and Unboxed will make those costs even lower. So personally, I have noted here in this space on multiple occasions that I could care less about the consumer version of the Gen 3 vehicle. So when I first heard that the news from Reuters, I was like, oh, good. I'm not so interested. When the company has this many opportunities and they're doing so many things, I'm not that interested in a low-cost, low-margin vehicle in the United States, in Europe, China, anywhere. I'd rather see them spend the money on, let's say, a small truck. It could be the same platform, a small truck, a small van, or other niche vehicles where the margins would be higher and the prices would be higher. Or they could just keep finding ways to sell more Ys, more 3s, more Cybertrucks, and then add a large van or maybe a different kind of truck besides the Cybertruck. Maybe it's a little smaller and maybe it is more designed specifically for contractors and farmers, etc. I don't know if we need that or not, but I'd much rather go in those directions. I've never been that big a fan, quite frankly, of the Gen 3 small consumer vehicle. Anyway, the article attacked this so-called decision on the part of Elon Musk because it would go against his mission of getting to sustainable energy. But in fact, robotaxis are much better for the environment, much better for sustainability than cars that are only used a few hours per week. This has never been an issue. I don't know where Reuters even gets their thinking. So they're wrong on the facts, according to Elon, and they're even wrong on the analysis. The value of every robotaxi that Tesla makes compared to making a consumer vehicle is at least double or more, because the profit will be double on exactly the same cost to manufacture the vehicle. So to us stockholders, we'd be much happier with them making robotaxis than making Gen 3 vehicles. Now, let's consider maybe the Reuters article is actually true. This would indicate, there's only one thing that could indicate, Elon's confidence that FSD is solved, or it's going to be solved any day now. Maybe he's talked about having a big change in May. Maybe it's going to be solved even sooner than we thought. And so he's got the high, it would be an indication that his confidence level is very, very high. I mean, first of all, offering the 30-day free trial was obviously an indicator that the current version is good enough to sway adoption. But dropping the Gen 3 vehicle entirely would say that he's seen the future and he knows what's going to happen. Well, here's what Sawyer Merritt had to say, and I bring this up because Elon responded to it. So Sawyer Merritt says it this way. Elon just said that Reuters was lying. However, here's my general thinking. Tesla's low-cost $25,000 car and the robotaxi were always going to be based on the same platform. They were always going to be very similar, but the $25,000 version would have a steering wheel. Maybe Elon and the team have been so impressed with how good FSD 12 has performed, and we're maybe thinking they should be shifting more resources to the robotaxi FSD effort. I guess I just said that before Sawyer said. Anyway, this doesn't mean that the $25,000 car is canceled. Again, they share the same platform. And Elon answered to Sawyer Merritt's note here. He had those eyeballs, the emoji with just the two eyes. Sawyer responded to that. He says, I'll take that as confirmation. Anyway, what's happened to the stock this morning? Well, of course, the minute that the Reuters news hit, all the algos went crazy and the price dropped, and the stock had been flirting with the green. I mean, it was like so close to being in the green when all of a sudden, of course, it dropped $10. But then Elon actually responding this time, so happy to see that he had a response. Anyway, when he responded, $6.50 of that was recovered. Just for fun, let's see if that's still the case. We are now even more up. We're now up $7 from the bottom. We're not up for the day. So now $7.33 of that $10 has been recovered. So the market continues to be very impressed today with, I'm changing subjects here just for a minute. The markets continues to be very impressed with the job news. Let's think that one through also. I personally would love to get past the market's emphasis on inflation, interest rates, and the Fed. They are important, but what is really important is the engine of the U.S. economy, the small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, that all of these businesses are doing well and trending better. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have headwinds. And I think we got to pay attention to these headwinds. But I did make my decision this morning. I've already said, if you watched the show this morning, if you didn't, I'll put the card right up here. I said this morning, I'm now 100% saying that we will not have a recession this year. The recession's off the table. With these jobs reports this morning and the other information that we have right now, not going to have a recession. But here are the headwinds that we do have to pay attention to over the next months to see whether we could have a recession next year, or whether we are potentially what the Fed might need to do to continue to marginally affect things going forward. Recognizing, of course, that a 25 basis point change in the interest rate is not going to change much consumer activity. So these are the ones we got to watch out for. Here's the list. Consumers are still running out of money. There's no doubt about that. We saw that. If you saw the video the other day that I did, consumers are making a decision. The discretionary products are where the prices are dropping rapidly is on discretionaries. If the prices are dropping rapidly on discretionaries, that's because inventories are building because consumers aren't buying them. When discretionaries are dropping, that means the consumers are having to spend more money on day-to-day items, gasoline because the prices are going up, other things that are oil-based because prices are going up, foods and everything else is going up. So they're having to spend too much of their paycheck on those items. They have no money left for discretionaries. This is a signal. It is a headwind. It's not a killer, but it's something to watch for. Number two, government debt. We've beaten this horse to death, but it's not going away. And the interest that the government's paying plus the overall debt, not sustainable, has to be dealt with. Regional banks and the office building issue is not going to be helped with the bonds treasuries and with the Fed rates and the treasuries all being so high, that makes the banks difficult to deal with as these builders or these owners of these office buildings try to renegotiate their loans. We've got wars and international tension. We have Iran saber rattling. We have Israel this morning closing 25 embassies around the world because they're afraid Iran is going to attack them at the embassy level. We have continuing problems, obviously, between the Ukraine and Russia, with the President of the United States raising the stakes yesterday by saying that NATO is going to allow the Ukraine to join, and Putin saying, not unsurprisingly, Putin saying back, well, that would mean world war. I mean, are we really that concerned about Ukraine in NATO that we're willing to risk a nuclear conflagration? Anyway, this is an international tension. These tensions are there. They're meaningful. And it'd be nice if we could get those off the table. Oil, gold, and the dollar surging ever skyward. These are headwinds, things to be concerned about. Oil up again today. Gold going crazy. All-time highs, day after day after day. The dollar very high compared to the rest of the basket of currencies. Housing prices continuing to climb with horrifically low inventories going into the future. Those low inventories are not going to go away, and people now are going to say, interest rates aren't coming down, going to have to go buy the house anyway. Because why? Because if the interest rates come down later, you can always refinance. I mean, come on, we got to get right here. And then we got the border. The border is out of control. Something has to be done. Okay, those are the headwinds. But if the economy can keep moving along at 2 to 3%, which it looks like it's going to, without increasing inflation measurably, which maybe that's what's going to happen, we could end up with kind of a Goldilocks moment with tech powering us into an age of abundance. So I am going to close out here by saying, I think the Reuters story was maybe partially right. Maybe their whole story was about Shanghai, not about Europe, not about the United States. Could be that Europe or the United States will even be supplying some of these foreign markets, and they won't be coming. Mexico might be the export hub for the Gen 3 vehicle, and all they're going to make in China will be robotaxis. That's my take for the moment, but the Reuters story is, if it's partially true, that would be interesting in and of itself. And then interesting day for the economy, and can't wait to hear what Cathie Wood has to say tomorrow morning. And of course, Larry Goldberg and I will be talking about that. In the meantime, if you didn't see this morning's video where I talked about the jobs story, I think, yeah, it'd be wise to go check that out. There's the card. All right. It's been great talking to you.